In the world of mega millions and euro millions, where does the National Lotteries Commission stand?
So South Africans think that they're actually playing a foreign lottery. They're not.
What are the repercussions of that?
Depending on the source of where those funds come from, if it comes via the banking system, the banks may decide to withhold those funds.
What's the period I have to claim?
You have a year, 365 days to claim.
Welcome back to Palatable Politics, a show where we take the complexity out of politics and make it palatable for you. With me, your host, TJ Maslela. Welcome to the show. In today's session, we're going to be discussing the National Lotteries Commission. And here to give us insight is none other than the Commissioner, Mrs. Jodi Scholtz. How are you doing?
Well, thanks, TJ, and you.
Good, thanks. So, you've been in school. You've done your MBA, Masters at UP, career-wise. How did you go from being a training consultant to a national commissioner?
Nobody's actually asked me that question. I think it's, for me, you have to stay curious. So, I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I have certain things that I'd like to find out. It could be anything from how does the rand fall? What does it mean to trying to figure out my daughter's autoimmunity? So I've always been curious about a range of things. I think also once you understand what your purpose is, mine is to serve. So I do that in a variety of ways. So it's gone from training consultant.
Okay, all right, no. That thing of serving is a beautiful thing and knowing your purpose. So now let's touch on the National Lotteries Commission. How did it come about? What does it do? Objectives?
So the National Lotteries Commission, we are celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery this year. The purpose is outlined in the Act, fairly simple. We regulate and advise. So we regulate the National Lottery and sports. We then appoint a National Lottery operator. The intention as well is that we advise the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition on any matters relating to national lotteries or sports balls. We also have a mandate that says we distribute. So anybody who plays the National Lottery, a portion of your ticket sales comes into the National Lotteries Distribution Trust Fund, which is then used and distributed for worthy causes. We define those causes, 4 key areas: sports and recreation, arts, culture, natural and national heritage, and charities. The 4th category is a miscellaneous. Anything that's not covered under those, we cover under miscellaneous. And so that's our distribution leg. And then the third element of what we do is that we also promote awareness about the National Lottery. Some of those, the promotion activities and the education activities, include things around player protection. Gambling is addictive. And so how can we ensure that while you are playing the National Lottery, everybody hopes of winning the National Lottery, but that where there's excessive play, we are also able to then put in mechanisms at community level to say, these are some of the things that you can do to protect yourself.
Okay. I know you touched on it, but can we get an overall view as to what is the funding model of the national lotteries?
Fairly simple. We get a percentage from the operator. Currently, it's 29.5% of each ticket sale that comes into the Distribution Trust Fund. So we get around 1.4 billion rand a year from the operator. There's a host of mechanisms that's in place to make sure that we check ticket sales, we check advance tickets that are played, to make sure that we're getting what we actually has been agreed to within the license agreement with the operator. So that's essentially the funding model. I think where we are right now is we are exploring different kinds of funding models to see how we can stretch. 1.4 billion does sound like a lot of money.
It is.
But, when we just look at, I engage South Africans daily, and I'm absolutely blown away by the kind of things that people are doing at community level, making an absolute difference just where they are. And these are ordinary South Africans. And so I think we're looking at a few partners. We're looking at 1 or 2 specific areas. So the board has already defined those areas in terms of gender-based violence and femicide, as well as food security. And so, things like partnerships, if we come in with rand for rand, who else can assist us? And so we grow that pool effectively.
What is the role of the operator in Tuba? Where do they come in?
So the National Lotteries Commission grants one license to a private sector player to run the National Lottery. We then go and observe their activities. So, are all the terminals working? We go out and check, are there any issues with the ticket sales? Some people would say, I actually won the National Lottery. Here's my ticket. And Ituba hasn't declared those numbers, and so we need to do an investigation. What we found in all of this is that our system is actually very robust. So if you've got a ticket and you've doctored the ticket, and that does happen, unfortunately, we are able to pick that up.
Okay. And then you guys say that you've received 1.4 billion, and a lot of those go to funding initiatives, which from your guys' annual reports, you guys fund a lot of initiatives. So with regards, which was also, I guess, speaking to governance issues, what happened and how have you guys been dealing with those governance issues?
I think for me, that's heartbreaking on a personal level. The Act was promulgated in 1997. 2015 saw an amendment to that Act, which it is called proactive funding. The intention behind that is it's a faster mechanism. Government, we've got processes and we've got to adhere to the PFMA. It's a faster mechanism. So, for instance, if there's a flood in KZN, and we know from a changing climate and climate change that we are likely to get parts of the country are getting dry and other parts are going to get flooded. So it's intended as a vehicle to immediately go out and provide first-line assistance. That, unfortunately, was where all of the corruption occurred. And so you had individuals within the NLC who abused that. They created different structures and created or hijacked NPOs. The SIU tells us NPOs were hijacked. So if you and I had an NPO and somebody else, and we were doing a particular project in a community, if these corrupt individuals thought it was a great idea, they would then hijack it, kick the two of us off as directors, insert themselves, change the bank details, and the money would then be funded through to them. So, and variations of that. So there are various permutations of that. What we've been able to do is understand, I think, at a business process level, where the corruption is. And I met somebody who was also implicated in at the time it looked at SARS, and his advice to me was that you focus on corruption by not focusing on corruption. And that sounds weird, but it stayed with me. Because if you understand your business process from end to end, what actually needs to happen and how it happens, where the money flows, you're then able to optimize that process. And where we are right now is we are automating. So we're busy building a system. We've got about 10 young graduate interns who are able to help us build what we call the tech stack. And so the corruption, some of the measures we've also introduced, besides the business process and really understanding at a granular level what has happened, has also been to look at people. And so we've done integrity testing. We've used this as a first-line risk indicator. Where are the areas of risk? And we had 8 dimensions. Some of them, it's around maintaining confidentiality, your general honesty, bribery and kickbacks, corruption with service providers or with bidders, with NPOs and our grantees. 8 dimensions that we assessed. It gave us a very good sense, a bit of a RAG indicator, where the areas, where the hotspots are. Where we are right now is the board in March has approved our lifestyle audit policy. The executive team has already submitted their forms, and so we're busy rolling out lifestyle audits.
You put your hand up to be one of the first that also is audited, so a shout out to that. Okay, so now with regards to the funding of NGOs, what type of NGOs do you guys fund, and how do people go about getting funded?
So annually we publish a call. We call it the call for applications. It's around those 4 areas: sports and recreation, charities, arts, culture, national heritage, and then miscellaneous. We identify specific areas under that. We've kept those areas largely the same. We'd like to measure impact. It's also one of the things that we're wanting to do, is that we have 3 categories of grants: small, medium, and large. Small is up to 500,000. And medium and then large. And so the bulk of our applications are in the small grant space. people needing, operating costs. So we fund things, and I said I can't understand why the corruption happened, because we fund things like salaries. If you're needing to pay an NPO for staff, bring in volunteers for a stipend, these funds are intended for that purpose, And so the call goes out. We've obviously got particular areas, like in sports. Big focus is on school sports and on rural sports development. We also have then obviously the large federations for our elite athletes. We also fund institutes like Special Olympics South Africa. So it's making sure that we protect, funds are available for those who need it, for the protection of the vulnerable, and NPOs, NPCs are then welcome to apply. We have a funding window that is opened, and we then close that funding window. And then it allows us to then process those applications. So the Minister, in terms of the Act, appoints members of the distributing agency who then look at all of these applications. So each of the provincial offices, we have a presence in each of the offices. You go to that office, they assist you to collate your application, you then apply, and then the distributing agency then adjudicates that application. They're the only ones who can make a go or no-go decision in terms of how the funds should then be allocated.
When is your guys' next window for applications?
A bit of a sticky one. Right now, we are intending to open in July. Okay. We typically have opened this previously in April, so there has been a bit of a delay. We are still busy processing applications from the last call. There has been a bit of a backlog. We've introduced a range of changes. Tax clearance certificates, our verification processes have been revised. We've also introduced an inspectorate function, because what we've also found is that lots of projects don't actually exist where they say they exist. And so we've had to make, all of these checks and balances. The unfortunate impact of that has been that our processes have been delayed. And so we really are deeply sorry that this has happened. So with the new call, which we'll issue in July, the process would be online. And we're hoping then that would be a lot smoother and a lot quicker.
Personally, I don't mind, and I'm happy with such things, essentially, because you guys now become a victim of your guys' success. And it's part of the process of trying to improve. So now, with regards back to your guys' operations, what are the types of lotteries that exist?
So big one is there's private lotteries, there's society lotteries. We've also seen an increase in South Africans who play online lotteries. So you think you're playing a Euro Millions or Mega Millions. That's not allowed in terms of the Lotteries Act. But what you are in effect doing is you're betting on the outcome of that national lottery. And so the challenge is South Africans can play foreign lotteries provided they are in the country at that particular time. So if you're in the US and you're wanting to play Mega Millions, you can. But so I think there's quite a bit of awareness that we need to do around online lotteries. And so that's part of our ongoing education and awareness drive that we're wanting to do. Another big component is what we call society lotteries. These are typically available to NPOs who are wanting to raise funds, who are wanting to sell raffle tickets or competition tickets to the public for fundraising purposes only. And so that is available. Companies also, we often get companies who want to assist NPOs to do some kind of fundraising for these NPOs. They can then register with us to become external lottery managers. And so there's a simple application process. We then obviously take them through a process. We audit to make sure then that the funds that they get have been aligned to what they've intended. And we've seen, I think in the recent past, about 40 million rand has been generated by these NPOs for fundraising purposes. So it's a really great vehicle for NPOs who are wanting to diversify maybe their income streams. The most I think, well-known NPO is the National Sea Rescue Institute. Okay. So that's a society lottery. So they apply to us to run this lottery, the society lottery, and we then go and make sure that things are done procedurally.
Is there a limit as to the type of things which can be funded or fundraising these activities?
No, there isn't. And
Okay.
so you would, but as long as it's for fundraising purposes, so you could get a car as a donation, for instance, and you could raffle that. Those are some of the bigger ones, but it could be anything. It could be a basket of fruit. It could be, often companies would give their services to NPOs, and so NPOs may then want to package that and then raise funds to give that as a prize.
The education and wellness component. Can you walk us through that?
Education and awareness is around society lotteries, is around the intention of the Lotteries Act, how NPOs can benefit from that. And a big part of that as well is around compliance to our processes. And so we would go out, we would look at key stakeholders. I know Parliament in last year was saying that, a big component of the work is that we haven't been talking to traditional authorities, for instance. We're now making sure that our when we're going into a particular area, into a particular district, that we do a comprehensive assessment. Who are the key stakeholders that we need to engage with? Our chairperson as well, he's been leading provincial visits around meeting with all of the provinces. It's to talk to the provincial staff members, but then also to engage with the stakeholders and to hear from the stakeholders where we can make improvements. There's a big ethos around. So the board, in terms of our turnaround strategy, there's 3 pillars: reinstating credibility, restoring governance, and then building operational excellence. And so part of this building operational excellence and reinstating the credibility has been having engagements with stakeholders about how we can assist where we are not supporting them in the ways that they need to. And so this continuous improvement is something that is driving us.
In terms of what you guys do, what plans do you guys have for the near future?
So in terms of the National Lottery, where we are right now is we've got the current operators term coming to an end next year. So the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition has issued a request for proposals for private entities to come and run the National Lottery. We're busy with the evaluation of that right now. I can say that, in the past we've received about 4 bids. This year we've received 8. And so it's a lot of work. And I think towards the latter part of the year, the Minister would make an announcement in terms of who the next National Lottery and Sports Pools operator would be. That's on the lottery side. I think internally we've got a lot going on in terms of our processes, embedding a lot of the internal control deficiencies that we've identified, as well as then looking at different kinds of funding models. And then I think a big part of the work is around the colleagues internally. I think when I think about how corruption has impacted, it's been very, very hard on colleagues internally who have remained committed. So there's a real committed bunch of individuals who want to do what is right. But I think the processes and the systems around that didn't enable them to perform their functions. So for instance, I had to issue warnings internally. And when I had engaged with these colleagues and the forensic report that I had received, so when I got in, I had this, I think my whole table was full of forensic reports. And when we looked at the kind of training that was offered, it wasn't even what they were required to do. So it was, putting lipstick on a bulldog, and no offense to the animal lovers out there. It's just, it didn't serve the purpose at all. And so you have to look at people and how people have been impacted by this. And so that's my focus certainly for the next while.
How have you guys dealt with the whistleblowers?
I've met with the whistleblowers, some of the whistleblowers. The board has approved a reparations program. And, I think I was we've made certain proposals to the board. It's been a bit of none of us have done this before. We've looked at other reparations programs, and so I'm confident in the next bit we're going to be rolling this out, because we do need to go and say sorry for what has been done. I was chatting to somebody yesterday because we're also busy with an anti-bribery and corruption and fraud framework, which is based on ISO 37001, which is the international anti-bribery standard. You know, I learned a bit of things from the South African Bureau of Standards. And so in our discussions about this, you know, one of the things I was saying is that I wasn't responsible for the fraud and corruption that had happened, but I am accountable now. And so you can't duck and dive that, right? And so we do need to go out and say we're sorry. So the process has been a bit protracted, but we'll have to just judge. I'm taking this to the board, I think, in the April meeting, and we can then see how we roll this out.
With regards to the operator, I know now this is extension of you guys. How do they run their things? What happens when a person? How do they determine the amount?
So this is how the lottery functions. It's a closed pool of individuals. So whatever is in the pool is then distributed among the players. And the amount is determined by the number of players and the amounts that they play. Okay. Sometimes there's a rollover, and the part of the license agreement conditions that we have is that when the operator wants, for instance, a guaranteed jackpot, the unclaimed winnings. So there are people, unfortunately, who haven't claimed tickets. So after 365 days, if you haven't claimed, it then goes into this unclaimed pool, and we then can Ituba, the operator, can then request funding from that pool as part of a guaranteed jackpot. But it's basically the players and the amounts that they've played.
And what measures are in place to ensure that, hey, I won 10 million today, I don't land up on a show about money being blown?
That's in the operator space, yes. In Ituba space. So they have a whole program where they also offer financial assistance. They actually give you a financial advisor if you don't have one already, to make sure then that, you know, the money is utilized effectively. I mean, you know, I think some people, Ms. Mabuza was saying to me that some individuals, they would, you know, want to take their family on a dream holiday. Others are a lot more conservative, and so they would also then support that. One of the things that they do that I really like, though, is that they ask you, you know, what's on your wish list? So if there's like a South African celebrity that you're dying to meet, they then make that happen as part of your winner experience. So it's really over the top.
What would you like to communicate to people out there with regards to national lotteries, in terms of expectation, in terms of what's to come under your reign?
So the first thing I think I want to communicate is that we are not what has happened to us. That's the first point. I think we're much bigger and much greater than that. The second one is that we are in business, and we are here to support NPOs, NPCs to do their work. We're going to look at that slightly differently. I know that, you know, there's been discussions internally when we were doing our strat with the board that, you know, we wanted to exceed. I have a different view. I think we should just go out and blow it out of the water and do different kinds of things. And so that's what I'm exploring. I'm looking at different funding models. We're looking at different kinds of partnerships. So yes, the NLC is still there. We have introduced a range of measures so that even, for instance, if my hand is in the cookie jar, there's an independent reporting line. Okay. So we've put all of those measures in place to make sure that the integrity of the institution remains.
Sports betting, where does that fall?
It's also part of the National Lottery, but sports betting is also part of gambling. And so, you know, there is a dual, well, I wouldn't say a dual, but there's space on the lottery side. So if it's a lottery, but if it's betting, then it's under the Gambling Act.
Okay, all right. No, thank you for making time for us. It's been a very insightful interview.
Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Don't forget to tune in, same place, same time next week.